Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are starting something that I have been dreaming about for a very long time. This right here is a 1950 Chevrolet COE. For those of you who do not know what a COE is, that stands for cab over engine, and that means exactly what it sounds like. The engine sits directly underneath the cab, which gives this truck that incredible flat-nosed, aggressive, boxy look that you just cannot find anywhere else. These trucks were built tough, they were built to work, and they were built to last. And this one right here has been sitting for a very long time, waiting for someone to come along and give it the second life it deserves. That someone is me, and I cannot wait to show you everything we're about to do to this machine. Now, before we get into anything, I want to talk about where this truck came from, because the story behind it is actually really interesting. I found this COE through a contact of mine who knew a guy who had a farm property out in the countryside, and on that property, sitting behind an old equipment shed, was this truck, just sitting there collecting rust and dust and weeds. When I first pulled up and saw it, I honestly could not believe my eyes. Even through all the rust, even through all the damage, even through years of neglect, you could still see the bones of something truly special underneath all of that. The shape of the cab, the lines of the grille, the way those round headlights sit in those chrome housings. This truck has character that you just cannot manufacture. It either has it or it does not, and this one absolutely has it. So we towed it back to the shop, and the first thing I did was just walk around it slowly and really take everything in. I wanted to understand what we were dealing with before I made any plans or purchased any parts. And what I found was honestly a mixed bag. On one hand, the rust is significant. There are holes in the floor pan, there is rust through on both door skins, there is heavy surface rust on pretty much every panel, and the frame has some serious corrosion in a few spots. On the other hand, the cab structure itself is surprisingly solid. The roof is straight, the pillars are intact, the overall shape has not been compromised. That is the most important thing when you are looking at a project like this. If the basic structure is there, you can fix everything else. And the basic structure is definitely there on this truck. The engine that came in this truck is the original inline 6 that Chevrolet put in these COEs back in the day. Now I have a lot of respect for that old engine and what it did for decades. But for this build, we are going to be doing an engine swap. I know some of you purists out there are going to have strong opinions about that, and I completely understand where you are coming from. But here is the thing, this truck is going to be driven, it is going to be driven hard, and it is going to be driven often, and I want it to be reliable. I want it to start every single time I turn the key. I want it to have enough power to get out of its own way on the highway, and I want parts to be readily available if something ever goes wrong. The airless platform ticks every single one of those boxes, and for a Restore mode build like this, it is the obvious choice. Now I know some of you are asking what exactly is a Restore mode. A Restore mode is basically when you take a classic vehicle and you restore the exterior and the style to its original glory, but underneath the skin you upgrade everything with modern components. So this truck is going to look like a 1950 Chevrolet COE on the outside. The shape, the stance, the chrome, the grille, all of it is going to scream 1950s American iron. But underneath it is going to have a modern engine, a modern transmission, modern brakes, modern suspension, and a fully custom interior with all the comfort and technology you would expect from a vehicle built today. That combination, in my opinion, is the absolute best of both worlds. And I think when you see the final result, you are going to agree with me completely. Let me walk you through the plan, because there is a lot to cover and I want you to understand the scope of what we are taking on here. First, we are going to do a complete teardown. Everything is coming off this truck. Every panel, every piece of trim, every mechanical component. We are going to strip it right down to bare metal, so we can see exactly what we are dealing with and address every single issue properly. There's no cutting corners on this build. We are doing it right the first time. Once everything is stripped, we are going to treat all the rest. That means sandblasting the entire frame, the entire cab shell, and every panel. Rust converter is going to go on everything before any primer touches this truck. Then we are going to start with the bodywork. Patch panels where needed, fabrication where needed, and block sanding until every surface is perfectly straight. While the bodywork is being done, we are going to be building up the chassis. New suspension front and rear. We are going to be lowering this truck significantly because that low slam stance is going to look absolutely incredible on a COE. The combination of that tall cab and that low stance is going to be something really special. We are doing disc brakes all the way around because safety matters, and stopping power on a truck this heavy is not something you compromise on. The LS engine is going to be cleaned up and detailed, and we are going to be fabricating custom mounts to make it fit perfectly in that COE engine bay. Custom exhaust, headers, custom intake, and all the supporting systems, fuel, cooling, electrical, all of it brand new. Paint is going to be one of the most important decisions on this build, and I have thought about it a lot. We're going with a deep gloss black, not flat black, not satin black, but a full wet gloss black that you can literally see yourself in. The reason I chose black is because it is going to make that chrome pop like nothing else will. When you have deep gloss black paint next to polished chrome rear bars and bright chrome headlight housings, the contrast is just stunning. It is one of those combinations that has been working on cars and trucks for decades, and there's a reason for that. It simply looks incredible. For the interior, we are going full custom. No original parts are being reused in the cab. We are starting fresh with everything. Custom fabricated floor pan aluminium sheet, insulated and carpeted. Custom dashboard with a decoder digital gauge cluster, so we have all the information we need in a clean modern display. Custom steering column with a 3-spoke billet steering wheel. Custom bucket seats in black leather with contrast stitching. Full audio system hidden as much as possible, so it does not interrupt the clean aesthetic of the interior. And air conditioning because comfort matters, especially in a truck. You are going to be driving in summer heat. Now I want to take a moment and talk about the wheels, because the wheel choice on a build like this is crucial. The wrong wheels can ruin an otherwise perfect truck, and the right wheels can elevate everything to another level entirely. We are going with a polished multi-spoke alloy wheel. The diameter is going to be larger than stock, which combined with the lowered suspension is going to give us that perfect truck stance where the wheel fills the arch beautifully. Wide rear tires for grip and visual impact, and a slightly narrower front tire for the right proportions. When those wheels go on this truck for the first time, it is going to be a moment I genuinely cannot wait to share with all of you. Okay, so let us talk about the actual teardown process, because I think it is important for people to understand just how much work goes into the very beginning of a restoration before anything starts looking better. When you tear down a truck like this, it gets worse before it gets better. Way worse. You strip off all the panels and suddenly you are looking at bare rusted metal with holes in places you did not know had holes. You pull out the interior and you find rot and rust underneath what look like decent floor sections. You put the engine and suddenly the engine bay looks enormous and empty and slightly terrifying. This is the part where a lot of builds go wrong because people get discouraged. They see the scale of the work and they second guess themselves. I have been there on previous builds, and I can tell you the key is to just keep moving. Every bolt you remove, every panel you take off is progress. You are learning the truck. You are understanding what it needs. And every problem you find now is a problem you are solving instead of discovering later. The sandblasting on a project like this is genuinely one of the most satisfying parts of the early stages. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. When you put a rusted, crusty panel into a sandblaster and you pull it out and it is bare bright metal, you are seeing that panel for what it actually is for the first time. We are seeing the shape, the curves, the lines without any distraction. And on a truck with the design history of this COE, those shapes are genuinely beautiful. The curve of the cab roof, the radius on the corners of those windows, the geometry of that grille opening. When you see all of that in clean bare metal for the first time, it gives you this incredible rush of motivation to keep going, because you can see the potential clearly now. It is no longer hidden under decades of paint and rust and grime. It is right there in front of you, and it is beautiful. The welding phase of this restoration is where the real craftsmanship comes in. Cutting out rust and welding in patch panels sounds straightforward, but doing it well is genuinely an art form. The metal needs to be fitted perfectly before you weld. Gaps need to be consistent. The patch needs to be cut to exactly the right shape so that when it is welded in and ground smooth, you cannot tell where the original metal ends and the new metal begins. That is the standard we are holding ourselves to on this build. Not just good enough, not just functional, but invisible. If someone looks at this truck finished and cannot tell that patchwork was done, then we have done our job correctly, and that level of quality takes time. It takes patience and it takes practice, but it is the only way to do this right. One of the things I get asked about a lot when people see a COE build is whether these trucks are actually practical to drive in modern traffic. And the honest answer is yes and no. The visibility is phenomenal because you are sitting right at the front of the vehicle and you have an enormous windshield giving you a great view of everything ahead. The turning radius, however, is something you need to get used to because of how the cab sits over the front axle. The steering geometry is different to a conventional truck. Parking in tight spaces requires some practice. But on the open road, on a highway or a country road, this truck is going to be an absolute joy to drive. The tow cab gives you a commanding view of everything around you, and the sounds from that LS engine through the custom exhaust are going to be nothing short of incredible. The chassis work on this build deserves its own discussion because it is genuinely one of the most important parts of the whole project. A lot of people focus on the body and the paint and the engine, and those things are obviously important. But the chassis is the foundation of everything. If the chassis is not right, nothing else can be right. We're going to be fully seam welding sections of this frame to add rigidity. We are painting it in a multi-stage process, starting with epoxy primer, then a sealer coat, then the final top coat in gloss black. Every bolt hole is being chased with a tap to clean the threads. Every mounting surface is being checked for flatness. When this chassis is finished, it is going to look as good under this truck as the paint looks on the outside. The suspension setup we are running on this truck is going to completely transform how it sits and how it drives. At front, we are running drop spindles combined with new control arms to get the front end down as low as it can go while maintaining proper geometry. At back, we are converting from the original leaf spring setup to a 4-link with coilovers. That rear 4-link setup is going to give us the ability to dial in the exact stance we want, and it is going to make this truck ride and handle in a way that the original suspension could never come close to achieving. When you combine all of that with the disc brake conversion, this COE is going to stop and handle like something built in this decade, not something built in 1950. Now I want to talk about the LS engine build itself, because this is not just a stock engine going in. We're starting with a good clean used block that has been inspected and measured. Fresh rings, new bearings, all new gaskets and seals. The heads are going to be clean ported and fitted with new valves and springs. We are running a mild performance camshaft that is going to give us a great power band without making it a nightmare to drive on the street. The fuel injection system is staying because modern fuel injection is just so much more reliable and efficient than any carburetor setter. We are fitting chrome valve covers, a polished intake manifold, and a high flow throttle body. The finished engine is going to look as good as it performs, and in that COE engine bay with the hood tilted forward, it is going to be an absolute showstopper. The exhaust system on this build is going to be completely custom fabricated in stainless steel. We are running custom headers that are going to be specifically shaped to clear the COE frame and cab mounting points. From the headers we go into a high flow catalytic converter, then into a custom X-pipe crossover, then into a pair of performance mufflers, and out through polished stainless roll tip exits. The sound is going to be deep, authoritative, and completely appropriate for a truck this size. Not too loud, not too quiet, just right. The kind of exhaust note that makes people turn around when you drive past, And that is exactly what we are going for. One of the most time-consuming parts of any serious restoration is the electrical system, and this truck is no different. The original wiring in a vehicle dissolved is simply not safe or reliable enough to keep. Decades of heat, vibration and moisture degrade the insulation on wires, and old wiring is one of the leading causes of vehicle fires. So everything is coming out and we are installing a complete new wiring harness from scratch. We are using a modern fuse block with blade fuses and clearly labeled circuits. All the wiring is going to be done in braided loom and secured every few inches so nothing can rub through. The result is going to be a vehicle that not only runs reliably but that can be diagnosed and serviced by any competent mechanic without pulling their hair out trying to figure out what some previous owner did with a roll of electrical tape and some wire nuts. Shh. The paint process on this truck is something I want to walk through in detail because I think a lot of people do not appreciate how many steps are actually involved in achieving a show quality paint job. We start with the bare metal after all the body work is done. First coat is a 2-part epoxy primer which seals the bare metal and gives us a stable base to build on. Then we block sand that epoxy primer to make sure the surface is perfectly flat. Then we apply a high build primer which fills any remaining surface imperfections. We block sand the high build primer again first with coarser paper and then progressively finer paper until the surface is absolutely perfect. Then we apply a sealer coat. Then the base coat which is our color. Multiple coats of base with fresh times in between. Then the clear coat. Multiple coats of clear. Then after the clear has cured properly we wet sand the entire truck starting with fine paper and working up to ultra fine. Then we compound and polish until the finish is mirror perfect. That entire process takes days and it is tedious and it is repetitive, but the end result is something that simply cannot be achieved any other way. Let me talk about the chrome work on this build because the chrome is what really gives a classic American truck its identity. The grille on this COE is made up of horizontal bars and it is genuinely one of the most iconic grille designs in the history of American trucks. We're going to have that grille professionally re-chromed, which means stripping it back to bare metal, polishing it to perfection, and then applying multiple layers of copper nickel and finally chrome in a controlled electroplating process. The result is going to be a depth of finish in that chrome that modern plastic chrome parts simply cannot achieve. Real electroplated chrome on a properly prepared surface has a three-dimensional quality to it, a depth and a reflectivity that is almost liquid looking, and it is going to contrast beautifully against that deep gloss black paint. I want to take a moment and talk about something that does not get discussed enough in the restoration world, and that is patience. This build is going to take months. There are going to be days where nothing seems to go right. There are going to be parts that do not fit the way they should. There are going to be suppliers who are late with deliveries. There are going to be moments where you make a mistake and have to redo work you already did. All of that is normal. All of that is part of the process. The builds that turn out the best are the ones where the builder refuses to rush, refuses to cut corners because of impatience, takes the extra time to do each step properly before moving on to the next. That is the commitment I am making to this truck, and I think the results are going to speak for themselves when this build is complete. The interior fabrication on this COE is going to be one of the most creative and satisfying phases of the whole build. We have a completely blank canvas to work with in that cab, and I have been designing the layout in my head for weeks. The floor is going to be hand fabricated from aluminium sheet, formed to fit perfectly and then insulated with a quality sound deadening material before the carpet goes down. The dashboard is going to be custom fabricated from steel shaped to flow with the curves of the original cab, while incorporating modern gauge and switch openings. We're going to have a hidden climate control system so the cab is comfortable in any weather. The storage solutions are going to be thoughtfully integrated so everything has a place and the cab feels uncluttered and purposeful. The seats I have chosen for this build are custom-made bucket seats upholstered in black leather. The stitching pattern is a simple diamond quilt that echoes the era of the truck without being overly literal about it. The seats are going to be mounted on custom fabricated rails that allow fore and aft adjustment. The driving position in a COE is unique because of how close you sit to the front of the vehicle, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about how to optimize the ergonomics so that long drives in this truck are genuinely comfortable. Getting the seat position right relative to the steering wheel and the pedals is something I take very seriously, because comfort and driver control are directly related to safety. I want to address something that comes up in the comments on builds like this regularly, and that is the question of value. People sometimes ask whether a restoration like this is a good investment, and I want to be honest with you. If your primary goal is financial return, then a full ground-up custom restoration like this is probably not your best option. The cost of parts, labor time, and materials on a build like this is significant. What you get in return is something that cannot be measured purely in dollars. You get a vehicle that is completely unique. You get a vehicle that carries decades of history. You get the satisfaction of knowing that something that was headed for the scrapyard now exists as a functioning rolling piece of art. You get a vehicle that will stop traffic and start conversations everywhere it goes. And you get the experience of having been part of creating it. That is the real value of a build like this, and it is not something that shows up on a balance sheet. As we get deeper into this restoration, I'm going to be documenting every single step as carefully as I can, so that those of you who are working on your own projects can learn from what we are doing here. Whether you have a COE of your own or a completely different vehicle, the principles we are applying here translate across the board. Proper rust treatment before primer. Take your time with bodywork, because you cannot hide bad bodywork under paint. Plan your wiring before you start running wire. Mock up your engine and exhaust before you cut any holes. Test fit your interior components before you're opposed to anything. These are lessons that every experienced builder has learned the hard way at some point, and I would rather you learn them by watching this build than by making the same expensive mistakes that everyone else has made. I'm going to tell you right now that this COE is going to be one of those builds that I look back on for the rest of my life as one of the most important things I have ever done in this shop. There is something about this particular truck, about its history, about its design, about the way it looks even in its current state that feels significant. Like this truck has a story that has not finished being told yet. Like it was waiting specifically for this moment to be brought back. I know that might sound dramatic, but if you have ever been in the presence of a truly great old vehicle, you probably know exactly what I am talking about. Some machines just have presence, some machines just have soul. And this 1950 Chevrolet COE has both in abundance. I want to talk about the community that builds like this create, because it is genuinely one of the best things about doing this kind of work publicly. Since I announced this project, the response has been overwhelming. Messages from people who remember seeing COEs on the road as kids. Messages from truckers who drove similar vehicles in their careers. Messages from other builders who are working on their own COE projects. Messages from historians and enthusiasts who have shared information and resources that are going to make this build better. The community around classic American trucks is one of the most passionate and knowledgeable communities in the entire automotive world. And being able to tap into that knowledge and share this journey with all of you makes every difficult day in the shop completely worthwhile. The moment that I am most looking forward to in this entire build, and it is still months away, is the first start after the LS engine is installed. And all the systems are connected, and the moment comes to turn the key and hear it fire up for the first time. There is nothing in this world quite like that moment in a restoration. Months of work culminating in a single key turn. All the planning, all the fabrication, all the welding and sanding and painting and wiring leading to this one moment. And if we have done everything right, that engine is going to fire up and set it into a healthy idle, and the truck that was silent and dead for years is going to be alive again. That moment never gets old, no matter how many builds you do. Every single time it hits you the same way, and I know when it happens on this COE, it is going to be one for the ages. Every build teaches you something new, and I expect this COE to be one of the most educational projects I have ever taken on. The cab-over configuration presents unique challenges in terms of engine access, firewall fabrication, and exhaust routing that a conventional truck simply does not have. The way the cab tilts forward for engine access is both a blessing and a curse. It is incredible for maintenance once the truck is finished, but it creates real challenges during the build because you are constantly working around the hinge mechanism and making sure that the tilt function works perfectly with all your custom components installed. We are going to be spending a significant amount of time making sure that the cab tilt is smooth and secure, and that everything in the engine bay is accessible once the truck is on the road. The paint color selection process was something I went back and forth on more than almost any other decision on this build. I considered deep red, which would have been a nod to the original color of the truck when it came from the factory. I considered midnight blue, which would have looked spectacular with the chrome. I considered a two-tone option with black lower panels and a contrasting upper color. In the end, I kept coming back to gloss black every single time. There is a reason that gloss black has been the go-to color for custom builds for decades. It flatters every body line. It makes chrome look like liquid silver by comparison. It photographs beautifully in any light. And on a truck with the presence and the lines of this COE, it is simply going to be perfect. I am confident in that decision, and I think you are going to be too when you see it. So here we are at the beginning of what is going to be an incredible journey with this 1950 Chevrolet COE. We have got a long road ahead of us, full of hard work and problem solving and creativity and all the things that make this kind of project the most rewarding thing you can do in a workshop. I am going to be with you every step of the way, showing you everything that happens, good and bad, keeping it real and keeping it honest, because that is the only way I know how to do this. I want you to feel like you are in the shop with me every time you watch one of these episodes. I want you to feel the grit in the metal and the heat from the welder and the satisfaction when something finally goes together the way it is supposed to. This is not just a truck build. This is a story, and we're just getting started on the first chapter, and I promise you the story is going to be one worth watching all the way to the very end. Shh.